Good afternoon, everyone. I am very pleased to be here, and I would like to welcome the panel's members. Lars Løvold from the Rainforest Foundation, Norway. And I'll call back Hindou, Ibrahim, and Carlos Manuel Rodriguez. Lars, I'm very proud to introduce my colleague and activist, a long-term activist in the environmental movement. Lars has been with the Rainforest Foundation Norway since its founding. 34 years, then henceforth, he left and became a special advisor to Rainforest Foundation Norway. He has witnessed the growth of the organization from its being a fledgling young environmental organization to being a nationally and internationally known activist environmental organization that support indigenous peoples and forests. He has lived there in the Amazon since the beginning of time and through, and came back to Norway, Miss Norway. And yes, he's here with us, with our other panelists, and welcome.
Thank you.
So I'll take my seat. Just to be really very certain about what we're talking about this time, rights of indigenous peoples. So this rights, if we practically translate that, is about legal and formal recognition of rights of communities to participate in the management of resources that they have lived with and depended upon collectively over the years that contribute to human and environmental benefits. And that's how we look at indigenous peoples. And over the years, we saw how this has panned out. It's a struggle, and there have been policies won. And so there is a resurgence. And this resurgence of rights and rights recognition has come up, and we are at the peak of this resurgence. And the question I'd like to ask Lars first is, how have you seen, what are your insights having witnessed this in Brazil and many parts of the world with the RFN? And what is your response with RFN on that? You know, what rights, resurgence of rights, and then what is your response?
I mean, Rainforest Foundation Norway was founded in 1989, and actually since the beginning, we had a rights-based approach to protecting the tropical rainforest. And the essence is a focus on collective rights. These areas have been managed by traditional populations, not with individual property rights, but by co-managing large territories and using those resources for their own benefit and for their children and grandchildren. In the beginning, the issue of rights was not integrated into an environmental agenda. You should protect the trees and you should not talk about the people. Now, after Glasgow, after large pledges, people are starting to realize that the role of indigenous peoples in protecting environment, securing carbon, taking care of the future is absolutely essential. It's a bit like that now, that if we provide tenure to traditional populations, the issue is solved. We are on the verge of exaggerating. The essence in my learning and in Rainforest Foundation's Norway's learning is that the basis for long-term sustainability is the official recognition of collective rights. You have the rights to these territories, your children will inherit it, and your grandchildren. But if you do not provide support to these organizations, if you do not provide capacity building, if you do not invest in these territories, if you leave it to them, then the danger is that in 10 years from now, they are no longer really the best providers of protection. So far, they have been historically. So biodiversity is better protected, deforestation is avoided more efficiently in many countries than even the strict national parks. But I also see that the smartest young people from indigenous populations in the Amazon, for instance, they are leaving the territories for education. They are seeking employment abroad. They are taking up leadership positions in indigenous organizations that are city-based. And the question is, why are there not challenging opportunities inside their territories? Why isn't there a career opportunity for the best people inside the forested territories? Yep. That's the essence.
So support. Yes, what
we
kind
must build,
of stronger...
And we must invest, and we must not take anything for granted, because modern society uses subsidies, enormous investment in politically prioritized themes, road construction, yes, agriculture, whatever.
Yes, and
we do not invest in these societies, which really are an important part of the solution for the future.
Yes, and what's important there is this, they're coming into their territory. People are coming into their territory, and what is the role now? How would, now I ask you, Hindou, this resurgence also comes with the resurgence of the awareness of the businesses to go green. And so here we go, there's this green investments coming into the territory, another wave. What is your insight on this? And what would you guide it if you could? What ways could you guide it if you could?
Thank you, Nonette, and sorry again to see my face, guys, but it's really great pleasure to be next Carlos here and then Lars in that side. So yes, green investment, now like it's become, let's go, let's transform the world, let's go to the green. And then the green investment, they think about that in a different way as indigenous peoples we are seeing. I said earlier, most of the mineral that we need for the green transition are in indigenous people's land. But how much indigenous peoples are going to benefit from it? Are we talking about the renewable energy? Are we talking about, again, making the same history that the developed world wanted to have, the renewable energy for an electric vehicle, that no one from the indigenous communities are going to benefit from it, but the resources coming from our land? Or are we talking about the equitable justice, accessible, renewable energy for everyone, to reduce poverty, to get access to the indigenous community, to get green, to clean water to drink, and green job?
And how would they do that?
So this is like the difficulty for us to understand. They can do it differently. To do it differently, I think from the government, there is need of setting of right legislations of what is the limit we are giving to the extractions. What is the limit that we are going to restore that? There is need to talk with the private sectors. They have to do that with full and effective consultations of the communities, that they are going to our land and taking those resources. How we are going to benefit from it? How does benefit coming back to our communities? How we can get the opportunity to turn on and off the light, because we do not have that yet.
Yes.
And then, of course, from the communities, we cannot do that without direct access finance, because we wanted to have that to develop our own small scale, renewable, not a bigger large who can grab the land. I saw the video earlier, it's really nice,
yes,
but it's not for the environment.
So I will ask Carlos Manuel later about this finance. Before that though, we would like to show a film that is very significant in terms of the jurisdiction and the right of an indigenous organization in Colombia that acquired their rights.
Ningún árbol no nace por nacer, ¿no? Todos los árboles, mire, estos todos son importantes. Sin la naturaleza no hay vida. El pueblo indígena no puede vivir sin el ambiente, porque es, digamos que está enlazado, está tejido entre el uno y el otro. Que para nosotros todos los minerales, todo lo que existe en el suelo y en el subsuelo es parte de la vida, no es para explotar. Nosotros estamos tranquilos curando el territorio. Entonces somos los que estamos guardando todo ese mal de las diferentes explotaciones que el mundo occidental está haciendo.
El decreto 632 es un decreto que permite que los pueblos indígenas de la Amazonia se organicen como entidades territoriales y hagan parte, como cualquier otra autoridad pública, de la organización del Estado colombiano. Es importante porque es un instrumento para que los pueblos indígenas de la Amazonia Oriental puedan finalmente realizar el ejercicio de libre determinación, de autonomía.
Los pueblos indígenas son los que mantienen estos territorios milenariamente para poder pervivir, conservar en estos territorios ancestrales. Estamos en una maloca donde está construyendo una maloca en William Yucuna. Esta maloca para nosotros es muy importante, súper importante en los pueblos indígenas.
Entonces, mire, miramos, este es un centro de la maloca, ¿no?
Porque una maloca representa un territorio, representa el cosmos, representa todo donde contiene el sistema de conocimiento tradicional y ancestral.
De parte de la maloca, 10 metros.
Que otros territorios del mundo están sufriendo, no hay territorio, no hay selva, no hay agua.
Porque antes los indígenas no éramos reconocidos dentro de la Constitución, pero este decreto ley 632 dice usted tiene la misma condición que un noruego, que un colombiano, que un departamento, que un municipio. Entonces haga su propuesta, haga su entidad, administre lo que realmente usted quiere administrar.
Esta lucha no ha sido fácil. La lucha de los derechos de los pueblos indígenas, la lucha de defensa territorial, la lucha de defensa de derechos fundamentales no ha sido fácil.
Porque finalmente, si no garantizamos la pervivencia de los sistemas de conocimiento y manejo, no podríamos contar con la selva.
Logramos un paso, pero falta más, ¿sí? Y eso es lo que queremos seguir haciendo, ir logrando poco a poco.
Thank you. Carlos Manuel, finance. Potentially, this is protecting at least 3 million hectares of the Amazon region. Could inclusive conservation initiative help sustain and maintain their rights over these areas that they now have as an autonomous?
Yes, sure, thanks. There's a couple of things which are super important here to understand, which is first, the finance, direct finance to indigenous communities is something that we've been talking, and that finance cannot happen with the actual models where there's a very top-down process that doesn't recognize the limited capacity for absorption and their role in defining how that finance should hit the ground. That is one very important element. The second important element has to do with the fact that, a couple of decades ago, many of these indigenous people were not even recognized as nationals to those countries. They have no political rights, no social rights, no rights to the land. And even though we've been seeing progress in all of those fronts, yes, substantive progress, that is the minimum that we need to have in order to give them autonomy in their territories, in their land. So that element of granting the rights is important, but at the end of the day, what we have seen is a lot of nice policies and nice laws, but those laws and policies doesn't have budget, doesn't have the political local structures, are unable to allow them to really decide on how they use their resources. And then the third element is the financial dependency. I think that as we understand that we need to walk the talk in terms of the political commitments, we need to realize that, one, international financial aid should fully incorporate indigenous people in the governing body of the financial mechanism, and in the design of the projects. And this is what the GF, the Global Environment Facility, is working through this very interesting inclusive conservation initiative. For the first time ever, leaders from indigenous communities from the tropical countries are in the GF, in the governing body of this new fund, taking the decision on how to mobilize and channel those resources. Yeah. And I think that this is a groundbreaking situation. I tend to believe that if the indigenous people owns 40% of the forests of the planet, this means the highest carbon stocks, this means the biggest freshwater stocks, this means the largest biodiversity stock. We need to create adjustments to the market so they are fully recognized by what they have and how they use it, instead of just being able to convince the Norwegian government or the national government to mobilize resources. We need to deal with that governance challenge and failure, and we need to really understand that the potential for them to prosper sustainably by providing global environmental benefits in a market at the local and national level that pays for that services will be the ultimate goal in terms of recognizing autonomy and in terms of improving livelihoods.
Yes, thank you so much. Direct finance then, and the structuring of that. Lars, I'm going back to you. Direct finance to indigenous peoples, how can we simplify that? How are we doing that now?
Let me say two things, because the film, I think, is not fully clear in the sense that in the Amazon 9 countries, 20% of that territory is now recognized indigenous territories. What is unique about the Colombian case is that the indigenous people can apply for municipal status. Yeah. There's a lot of requirements. Some of the most advanced are very close to being fully recognized, and that means that they are included in the public budgets, that their schools will have also public finance every year, health will have every year, and it will all be managed by the indigenous population. Now, second, direct fund. I mean, it is essential that support reaches the ground, as everybody has said. But you cannot flood money on people. You must have adequate approaches. So you need to open the doors for direct funding. You must trust people. In many ways, communities that we recognize as far away are extremely good at getting results. They may not be extremely good in managing financial resources. They need some training for that. So we must provide exactly that capacity building and the willingness to really reward them for having taken care of all those biodiversity resources, those territories, those forests, that carbon that we all talk about, but which really belongs to them and not to us.
I disagree.
Can you add to that?
I mean, the world cannot continuously saying indigenous peoples protect, manage 80% of the world's biodiversity. People clap. People are happy that we are the best protector of our nature, the clap. And when it's come to the finance, they say like, they need capacity building. They do not know how to do that. We protect 80% of the world's biodiversity. Why we cannot manage that? So this is not possible. The way that the finance is functioning around the world is not working. All the money that we are putting in the forest, did you see that a single year that the deforestation decrease? No. The deforestation is every year increasing. Doesn't matter that the money we are putting on it. The problem is, it is the system who is not working. How we can trust indigenous people's system of management of funding? If we trust indigenous peoples on the way of management of forests, that means we can also set up our way. Examples. My grandmother, maybe she cannot manage the Excel sheet, put all the numbers that the donors are required to check everything. But my grandmother is the best one who can tell you if it's going to rain in the next hour. She's the best one who can protect her land. She's the best one who know tree is not only tree is leaf, tree is insect, tree is bird, tree is something that she loves. So that's the things.
Hindou,
Yes.
your grandmother is the generation before you. Now you said 7 generations. How are we going to do it forward?
Absolutely. So if my grandmother, who didn't went to school, she know how to protect her forest, what she does? She is giving this knowledge to the younger generations. And as indigenous peoples, we take the decision up to 7 upcoming generations. That lesson need to go to all the government, to all the private sectors, to all the UN organizations, that you cannot think only the one generation coming, 2030, 2050. Think about 7 generations that are coming. And when you think about that, I think you can make a best investment.
Leadership.
Exactly.
Let's
you
do
need
that.
to do a best investment. So coming back to the film, actually, because I really get stuck on what he said. So coming back to the film,
That was designed.
it's really like very good to see how you can build a long-term leadership on the land. This didn't happen overnight. It's happened over 15 years of negotiations. And finally, they build the indigenous leaders who can claim that they can do their own education, they can do their own health, they can manage their land, their territory. In my community, I started with a small project. 7 years we are working on it. Now, for the first time, we get a land right for a group of women. And what has happened? Another community leader say like, me too, I'm going to give a land right to the woman. And then another leader come up, he said, me too, I'm going to give a land right to the woman. And then we are going to transform that in a legal recognition to the land right. So we need a leaders to be built. And you cannot build a leadership if you cannot invest and trust the people.
International.
I agree with you.
Thank you.
Yes, yes. So this is, we have a minute each to share with the group what is a decisive policy that could work, and or how would international development respond more than learning from our lessons now. You first.
So even though my co-panelists disagree in minor things, I agree with both of you on the fact that we got a big political challenge. And at the end, it is a political challenge. It is a political challenge associated to the fact of failed social contracts. Social contracts that are unable, because of policies, laws, or cultural elements, to fully provide opportunities to all citizens. It's not just indigenous communities who own the forest and has no rights. There's many citizens, farmers, particularly small, poor farmers, living in the margins of forests. And by the way, the lack of coherence from central governments generate conflicts within indigenous and non-indigenous communities, and we see this in the Amazon and the Congo Basin. So I think it's an issue of inequities, the failure of social contracts, and the need to generate opportunities to every single citizen in our countries.
Thank you. Thank you. Lars, your turn.
Invest heavily in indigenous territories. Build, strengthen capacity, create opportunities, and take away all of the stupid, exaggerated requirements on reporting and details in... I mean, we have a zero tolerance for corruption in Norway, which means that if you cannot explain what you use $10 for, you can stop a project. It's absolutely ridiculous. You don't look at the large picture, you look at the details, and we will never succeed if you continue like that.
Simplify the system.
I agree. The simple one is change the system. Don't stuck on the system. But to develop that, we need also to change the narrative. We cannot continuously say, you are donors, we are recipients, and then donors dictate, recipients implement. At the end of the day, it cannot work. We are partners.
Partners.
Financial partners, ecological partners. We are equal, we sit together, we take decisions together, we implement together.
We're right on time. Thank you very much. Finance, partnerships, direct support.
Thank you.